Are you sure about that?
Well, yes. I mean, I research. It's this is not the main focus of the research, but
Yeah.
uh,
Okay.
well, at least in at some point they did. I'm not sure how updated the information is, but yes.
Um, well, no worries. It's not completely right, but it's not completely.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
you can continue.
mm,
I take note.
the LC77 replaces repeated groups of bytes with references to a single copy of the data existing earlier in the file. In here we can see that ABC repeats, and when compressed it gets replaced by this notation, where the first number is how many characters we copy, and the second one how many characters away the original uh, uh, byte byte sequence was. Then Huffman coding, what it does, it sorts the bytes from more used to less used and redefines the more frequent ones for shorter byte sequences. And here the C byte is the more used. It would get replaced by this byte sequence, and these two would get linked by some kind of metadata as well. And when decompressing, every time the program would see this, it knows to write this byte.
Good.
Okay, now for the library that I will use, physics file system. It is a library to provide abstract access to various files, and it's specifically intended for its use in video games. It's portable and flexible, and once a search path is defined, it becomes a single transparent virtual file system. It is safe, which means that no file access is permitted outside of the specified directories, and it's flexible, so archives, especially zip files, can be used transparently as directory structures. It also supports all kind of files. Here I have the zip, the 7-zip, and the ISO because are the ones that I know. But in the website in my repository, I have a list with all, or at least most of the files that are compatible with this library. Okay, in this project, I will make use of the following physics FS functions. For starters, the init and the init function that start the library and then it closes and frees the memory, the init one. The mount and add to search path. These ones are more or less equivalent functions, and they add a file or a directory to a search path. And then the open read function opens a file to read. File length gets the length of a file in bytes. Sorry. The read function reads the data, saves it in a buffer, and returns how many bytes were read. And the close function takes a previously opened file handle and closes it. At the end, we have these two functions. The get last error function that gives a human readable report of the last thing that went wrong with the library, and the exist function that informs if a file is in the search path or not. These two are mostly used for crash prevention and debugging. Apart from the FS functions, I will also be using SDL or WOOP function. These functions allow the reading and writing of data in a stream without the caller needing to know where the data is coming from, which is perfect to read the buffers given by the physics FS functions.
Mm.
The functions that I will use are the RW from constant memory that turns a string of memory that we give it to a variable that SDL can read as an image or sound, and then the img load RW that loads the images from these variables from the RW from constant memory. The mix load RW that reads sound effects, and the mix load mass RW that reads the music files. Okay.
Wait
So,
a second, please.
what?
Just I want to take.
I actually closed. It was like there was like a UI here to control the Adobe Connect, but I closed it. I don't know.
Don't worry.
It's here. Okay, okay.
Just a second. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Well, now I will talk a bit about how did I structure my code and how to use it. To start, I will say that the project requires you to put the physics FS files that are, I think, 2 header files, a CPP, the .lib file, and a DLL. Then you will also have to include this module, the assets manager, and you will have to slightly modify the audio and texture load functions. These modifications are just one line of code, so they're not really big deal. But the assets manager has the following public functions. First, the constructor and destructor just initialize and deinitialize the library. The awake function is where we set the zip file where all the assets are. And as I will say that if you want to use this code as it is, and your file is not called assets.zip, here is where you have to come and change it to access your files. Then the exist function, it uses the physfs exist function, so it does the same. If a file is in the virtual file system, it will return true, and if it's not, will return false. The load data is the core function of this module, and it reads a file's data, and stores it in a buffer that you give it, and it also returns how many bytes were read. The load function uses the load data to read a file and transform it into an SDL so that we can process the data with SDL as images, sounds, or music. And finally, the load XML is a function that, given an XML document variable and a path, it returns the data of the file saved in a buffer, and gives the document access to the buffer. I would say that I'm not really really experienced with Ruby, so I'm sure some of you can improve this function, but as it is, I think it works pretty well. Well, now all this said, I will show you how to use the physics FS library and how to build this module.
Okay.
Before the first to do, I will say also that the handout project will crash until you complete the first to do. The crash is, I would say, intended, but after the first to do, if it crashes, it's a code problem. In the first to do, we will have to initialize the library on start and then close it when the program ends. It's pretty easy. Just in the constructor, use the init function, in the destructor, the init function, and that's it. The second to do is also
wait.
pretty.
Wait. Can we see it? Yeah. Just.
here in the
The create path function, did you implement it?
this creates a default path. Then we will set it we will set the system to we will add to the search path.
You created that function create path.
Yes. What it does is
Yeah. Well, I guess what it does. I mean, if you created the function.
yeah, I agree. It uses the mount function, but it's nothing to do. It's just
Yeah, okay.
to set a default path. Then the second to do is to set the file. Well, in our case, the file could be a folder where we start looking for files. To solve this, I used the add to search path to add this to add the file to the system. I will say that the search path is not limited to one file, so you could have multiple files that would, let's say, unify inside the virtual system, the virtual file system, when created. This would mean that if you have two zip files with two music folders, both music folders would merge would merge inside the virtual file system, and when accessing the music folder, you will have access to all the files in those two folders.
Excuse me, David. Just one question. Here you are adding to search path, but if you go to the first to the previous slide, yeah. Again, the create path. Why? How are you using the create path, or what's the use for create path? What are you calling create path there?
I can show it later. It calls a mount function to this to the directory here, the directory of the
Yeah, for the files, you mean?
yes.
But I'm seeing that you are not.
Can you see this? Or
Now we see nothing. I
nothing.
can't see anything. No. Yeah. It's all the screen in kind of a checkerbox. I don't see anything.
Okay. Well. I
Yeah.
will show
Okay.
you.
No worry. Continue.
To do this, well, the add search function.
Yeah.
Then the to do 3 and 4, we open a file to read and then read it. It's in the first one we have to open the file. So what I've done is we create a pointer to a physics file and we'll open the file to read with this function that I told before. Then we check.
Okay.
We check
second.
if this is not the complete function. Then in the to-do for it gets finished. Are we wait? Am I to wait?
Okay.
Okay. We create this. We open this file with the open red function. Then we check if the pointer is a null pointer, which would mean that some error occurred during the reading of the file and it was unsuccessful. If it's not unsuccessful, we save the length of the file as an integer and use it to create a buffer of the same size of the file. I will note that when the read is unsuccessful, we log an error with the getLastError function to help with debugging. To finish this function, in the to-do for, where we actually read the file, we use the read function to store the data in the buffer that we just created, and we also store the amount of bytes read in an integer. Then we check if the file was read successfully, comparing the length of the original file with the amount of bytes that were read, and if they are the same, we update this variable, but if they're not, we log another error with the last error and delete the buffer.
One question about fs read. Can you explain the parameters?
Okay, this is the file handler that we created here. And this is the buffer, the length. I'm not sure what this is. This is the object size.
What does it mean?
I mean, I followed some tutorials. I'm not completely sure of everything, but
should be actually that's the same structure that any.
I'm not really sure that's very well.
Well, do you know what will happen if we change the order of the last two parameters? Can you guess it? Is it possible? Is it even possible? I mean, the last two parameters of the call just change the order.
I don't know what it is. I mean, I don't know what the third one is used for. I just use the one for the call.
Okay, no worries. For the rest of the class, are you following? Did you hear the question? Did you hear the question? Hello, anyone? About the function fs read, the last two parameters. What do you think they are? Do you think they can be, let's say, exchanged? I mean, move the number 1 to the end and file length before. We do that. Angel, you say yes? Yes to the question? Or your answer is yes? Yes to be. Okay, don't worry, David. I answer the question at the end. Just continue.
Well, after all this, we will always load the file, and that will be it for the function. I will note that if the function fails, we will also return 0 apart from the argument. And now that we can read the data from the files for the 225, we have to make sure that STL can process it. And for this, we have to change the img load and mix load wrap functions that we use that take that read the data directly from the disk and replace it with the STLR groups function that are appropriate for each case. We will also use the load function of the asset manager to give the parameter to the function. I've not gone in depth with the load function in these tools, but now we will take a look at it in the code. So if you keep further,
What are the parameters of those functions?
this is the path, and this I don't know of memory. I don't know from my head, but I should have it here. Wait, I don't know. No, I think it's the source SRC.
In
This is the path. This is an STLR whoops. This is the type of variable. This is the information that we read, and this is the SRC the source. But I'm also not completely sure what it does.
It would be nice to know.
Yeah, I have it in the in the web,
Okay.
in the documentation, but not here. Well, have you look at the code?
Yeah, I'm just trying to find that function, but it's not.
What?
Okay. Nothing. Yeah. You put it out. Okay.
No, it's not.
I was just looking for the function.
For this one.
Yeah, I was looking for those functions to understand the parameters, just to know.
We can take a look. I think I have to change the.
Okay, I already.
How do I am sharing the screen of Google Chrome, but how do I change it to? Here. This is not it. But I will.
No, don't worry. Continue.
Yeah, but I have to change you can see.
Maybe you have to close first. Yeah, and now we share. Yeah.
Okay, now you see. This is the functions. I can here the create path in private. The load data could also be a private function. Okay. But
Let me check. Sets now. Can you do some zoom, please? Super small.
this is it's fine.
Yeah. Go down.
Just create path. Add the directory and dictionary.
Yeah. Okay, stop. Letting just read. Okay, yeah.
this is a simple, this is the simple code. And here in the load function, we use the SDL groups compartment memory that I mentioned. We give it the buffer and size, and it returns this so that the functions here can they just no reset this one.
Okay, can I see the previous one, please? Can you go again to the list? Wait a second. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Well,
Why? I mean, why are you using the load function? I mean,
the load function is used when loading the.
Yeah. But I mean, why did you separate the load function from the load data function?
Because the load data can be used in other functions, just like this one. But with XML files, you don't actually have to use SDLR groups like this. And in here, for example, I have the data in a buffer, and then create this buffer to where this file can be from. And I mean this is just a general reading function, and this is specifically for the SDLR groups functions. In here, if I didn't have the load data, I would have to put all the code, all these code transforming the data to an SDL groups in here and in the audio.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I will. I'm not sure if I will.
Yeah, we can see that. Oh no, because you just share you didn't share the screen. You just share the program. So you need to share all the screen.
This is what you see. This I will show you now the scene. I deleted two images. One of them is from my XML file, and this one is just reference to the load function.
Yeah.
And well, if you press 1, you can hear a sound that I uploaded.
But those files are in a zip file.
Yes, and now I will show you.
But the one reference in the XML actually it's inside the zip also.
Yes.
And what will happen if we want to load now a file that is not inside the assets, inside the zip?
It should be.
It's not possible right now.
I mean, if you, instead of creating the search path to the zip, you create it to the folder where the zip is, and you have those files there, it shouldn't be a problem.
It should work. It could maybe. I don't know.
I haven't tested it, but how I think it should work like this. But
I think so. I think PCFS allows that.
We make use of the config XML that is actually not inside the div. Well, in the scene, just to show you, here is the start where I set the texture here. I make a normal texture load like you would do in any other project, FCL. And here's the big logo photo. And then to load the XML here, it's just I create the file, the buffer.
The XML it's inside the assets also.
Yes. All of this is inside the
assets. Okay.
And then here we just navigate the XML. I just make in this case the string, but here you could load the map or whatever you want to use. And here with the sound is just as
okay.
Non, let's say, physics effects.
Yeah. Okay.
It doesn't affect much to the loading texture from a, let's say, a user point of view. Now with the let me show you the files. You can see this.
Okay, and how do you free the buffer's memory? Where do you free the buffer's memory? Config XML, it's outside of the assets right now.
Yeah. The config. I mean, the config XML is used before loading all the modules. So in order to allow I mean, I would have to modify the app a bit more. So I thought it would be simpler to keep it out.
So actually, it would be kind of
modify too much the base of the project. I just decided to
and my question, David, how do you free the buffers that you are loading? It's a very important question.
So,
you are doing the load in the assets manager, but you are not unloading. See, load data. You got the buffer. Now you got a buffer with a lot of data. Where are you freeing that memory? Where are you deleting that data? Or you keep that data in memory forever? It's the dynamic memory. Go up, go to the new, look for the new char, file length, buffer. Every time you do a new, you have to do a delay, right? Or a release.
Deleted the load functions.
No, that's not. You're loading from memory, but you still have the piece in the memory. When you load from memory, you have a piece in the memory and you put another piece in the memory. So it's not about no. You are freeing the surface here. You are freeing the surface, but not the buffer.
Yeah, I should be doing it here. But that's
What do you think, people in the class? Are you following? That's another important question. What happens with the memory? Tell me, anyone. You should have a cleanup. Gotta free that memory. Yeah. We are supposed to free the memory. That's it, Victor. Free memory. So. So, no one. Shouldn't the release happen every year? No, that's not a good answer. No. You have to release when you need to release. The data, you use the data and you release the data. Okay. David, is there any other point from the presentation, or that's the end of the presentation, or you reach the end? Yeah, I mean, do you have any other slide, or?
No.
Oh, so that's it? Something else to comment, or I can comment some things on the code, on the presentation? Wait a second, something is shouldn't be released and not just in the cleanup. Okay. Just create a cleanup function and call it whatever you want. Wow. Okay. Here there's some things to comment. First, well, right now we are on the code, so first I will comment about the code. You must know your code. That's a must. I mean, if you're using one function, first understand the function you're using. That's for everybody, okay? Because you cannot answer those questions because you don't know the functions that you are using. You are just using those functions that could be copied from a tutorial or from somewhere else, but you are not understanding what those functions are. Even if you think you understand the function, sometimes could be some details around that you miss and are super important. For example, that detail about the memory. If you don't understand what are you doing with your memory, your program will crash at some point, or you can leave some memory leaks or anything. Fortunately, in that code, you are unloading the buffering, you are freeing the buffers, but you are not doing it by yourself. It's done automatically. How you do that automatically? David, go to the image loading function. Yeah, you see that one at the end of the image load RW? No. Image load, yeah, that one. That one means please free the buffer for me. Yeah. Free the buffer for me. That's, personally, I find it as it's horrible for me. It looks horrible, that function. That function image load RW read write. It's with that parameter at the end saying that free the buffer for me. I really don't like it. Why? Because you have no control over the memory. You have no control at all. I mean, you are saying, okay, free it for me. You have to expect that it will be done right, but what happens if you need the buffer later on? That would be a problem, because the buffer would be already freed and you didn't even notice that the buffer was freed. I don't like personally that implementation, but yeah, in any case, the point of that discussion, you have to understand the functions that you are using. You have to understand them. So if you put that one there and you knew that, you have to know why you put that one there, okay? The other one, go to the Assets Manager CPP. Go up to the FISF, yeah, go down, read, the FISF read, yeah, that one. FISF's read, yeah. That one over there. What means that one? What means file length? Could those two parameters be exchanged? You have to understand the functions you are using. You have to understand them. Actually, that function is very intuitive because they are using the same format from a standard file access function. Just wondering, have you done some file access programming at this point in your grade?
I mean, we did in programming 1, we used the F open and...
Yeah, that's it. The F open, F read, F write, F close. Because actually FISFS use the same functions formatting, the same functions, parameters and everything. You did that. And when you did the F read, did you understood the parameters at that point?
No, I don't really remember that much.
Well, anyway, answering to the question, object size and object count. What do you think is it?
I mean, it's I'm putting CSS.
Yeah. But what does it mean? Because even the descriptions are...
how as I'm interpreting, the object size is how many bytes we read at a time, and then the second one, the file length, the object count is how many bytes we read.
I didn't understand your Can you explain it with your own words?
Here it says object size is bytes of objects being read from hand.
Yeah, but you are just reading a description that sincerely I find very difficult to understand. So yeah, can you explain me with your own words what it means? Let's say, for example, what would happen if we put instead of 1, 4, for example? What would happen?
As I am understanding, it would I'm not sure, but it would be 4 bytes the amount of times the file length. I mean,
no. Not. Anyone can understand how that function works? Actually, it's the standard F3. Yeah, well, another question: what will happen if we change the order of the parameters? What about file length and 1? Would it work?
But I'm not sure that it's
Wait. There is some people saying things. The second, the count of objects. Very good, Adrian. The first is the size of the objects, and the second, the count of objects. Yeah, but do you understand what it means?
I'm not sure what the objects are.
Hey, wait. Angel is giving, it seems, a right answer. It will read only one object with the size of the word file. That's it. Yeah, that's it.
And then what?
That's it. But what about if we change the order of the last two parameters?
It will break file length object.
Wow, you are right. You are right on your assumption. That's it. I mean, if we exchange the two last parameters, right? The first one, referring to those two parameters, the first one defines the size of the chunk to read, and the last one defines the number of chunks to read. If we say that the chunk size is 1 byte, we are reading file length chunks of 1 byte. But if we change the order and we define the chunk size file length, we will read just one chunk of that length. Did you understood?
Yeah,
Did you understand?
I tried. I was trying to explain something similar.
Okay.
But then switching them would be more efficient. Like reading.
It has some benefits, but also it has some downsides. Technically today it would depend on the compiler, but probably in terms of efficiency would be kind of similar. From a theoretical point of view, it would be more efficient if we change both parameters, but it would depend on the implementation down in the code from the compiler. Okay. Here there is another thing that we have to take into consideration to use this one or the other one. What we need to consider, the read it return value. What is the return value? You didn't check for the return. What is the return value? Can you check the function?
The return value is the number of objects. Oh, the number of objects.
That's it. The return value is the number of objects, not the number of bytes.
In this
case, with current implementation, with current use, what is returning? Is returning the number of bytes. But what will happen if we change the order of the last two parameters? It will return 1. That's it.
This way it's easier to detect failure.
Well, it's easier now, because now it could fail at the middle of the reading, right? And just return half of the parameters.
But then when we compare it with the file length, it would see that it's not complete.
Yeah, and you need to release the data. Right? But if you are doing the other way and you are just checking that the files fs, I mean, if you are doing the other way, the last two parameters, you can place files f is read call inside the if.
What?
Can I control your? Never. I mean, you can. How to explain that? You can copy fish fs read. Okay, let's do two things. Change the order of the parameters. The last two.
You can put it in the if, you mean?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, and compare it to 0.
And compare it to know 0 or 1 to know if it read the data correctly. Are you following me the rest of the class?
You mean?
Let's wait a second, David. Let's
here.
do a.
You mean like here? Where? Which are the places?
Yeah. Like here, yeah. We could do that exactly that way. Let's do a quick class assistant check. Marc Ariza, Jordi Bach, Tomás Carreras, Enric Guillem Duran, Albert Espinosa. Enric Duran, Tomás Carreras, Albert Espinosa, Jordi Espriu, Pau Fiol. Oh, Jordi Espriu. No, Jordi. Ok, Pau Fiol, Mar Gallardo, Ángel González, Francisco Guerrero. Fran. Ok. Nuria, Alex, Aitor, Adrián. Okay. Santiago, Víctor. Pau, Miquel, David. Pau, Pedra. Oh. Miquel. Albert, Gerard, Daniel. Gerard. No, Gerard. Oh, Gerard, yes, Gerard. Ok. Marc, San José, Oscar Tarrés. Oscar Tarrés, nice. And Guillem Turmo. Oh, so Jordi Espriu. Oh, poor Jordi. Never mind. Okay, update it. So let's go back. Did you follow the explanation about the read?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, here the point here is that okay. Yeah. Wait a second. Oh no. Well, never mind. The point here. Is that watch out your functions. Okay, you should. Well, actually, not sure. You must understand the functions that you are using to use them properly. Okay. Well, actually, the fread function is a tricky one. So I get there, and I knew that one was very tricky. So I asked you about that one, David. So no worries if you didn't know about it, because I know that it's a very, very tricky one. Yeah, about the presentation. I miss a bit of theory, more theory about the virtual file systems. why we need a virtual file system, what are the benefits. For example, one question, David. David, are you listening to me? Why we need physics FS? What are the benefits of using physics FS?
Well, I glanced a bit over it for the security benefits and all this. But I mean, I didn't go into it.
Yeah, it would have been nice some more explanation of why we want to use that and what are the benefits. Also, I missed some information about data compression and data packaging. It was nice that you explained the zip files. Actually, the algorithm used in the zip, it's called deflate algorithm. Deflate is the standard name. It's based on LZ77 and Huffman. It's based on those two algorithms, but it's not neither of those ones. It's a custom implementation.
I have this information, but I guess I tried to over.
No. It was good, really. I really like that you explained the LZ77 and the Huffman. Actually, it's not that exact implementation that is used in the zip, but it's based on those two algorithms. Okay, just note that it's called the deflate algorithm. Okay. Actually, another point about the zip files. Zip files, the zip itself, it's a container. It's similar to what we explained yesterday about video files. The zip itself, it's a container. Okay. Data could be compressed with different, let's say, codecs, different codification algorithms. Deflate, it's the standard codification algorithm used in the zip files, but you can use other algorithms today. Okay, just a detail. Yeah, well, I missed some information about the virtual file system. Virtual file systems are super interesting. How file systems work and what is a virtual file system? Do you know what's a virtual file system?
I researched a bit, but I just the things I found were just people like talking about implementing them in Linux and things like that.
Yeah. Well, actually, all the current operating systems rely on some kind of file system. File system actually just a table managed by the system. Okay, managed by the system that lists the names of the files with positions in the memory and length. Okay, so all the files that you have in your computer, actually they rely in a continuous memory space in the hard drive. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
I mean, the concept of files actually does not exist. You have a continuous space in memory and you place the data one after the other. So we need some kind of file system to kind of relate the names of the files and the size of the files with the position in memory. Well, actually the relation is only the name of the files with the position in memory and the size in memory. Okay. Do you understand that? Are you following me, class? Please, hello?
Yeah, I searched a bit about this. I found a bit of information about file systems in general. Like they divide the memory in chunks or clusters.
Well, those are the file systems, but actually, sometimes we need custom file systems. We need what's called a virtual file system. Virtual file system is actually the same. It's the same, but we manage the file system. FysFS, it's just a library for that, to manage virtual file systems, because we got a continuous memory chunk of data that is the zip file, and that library allows us to manage that chunk of data like it was a bunch of files. And actually, that's quite amazing. That's super interesting. It has a lot of implications and applications actually. Well, going back to games, that is what we are interested in. All the companies use that kind of a structure on their games. I mean, the professional ones. Even if you make a game in Unity, all the assets that you are using at the very end, they just generate a .package file or a .assets file. And what is that file? What do you think? What is that package?
I mean, I assume it's just like, it would be just like this zip file, the assets file, but
Yeah, it's a binary. Yeah, sure. Everything is a binary, Miguel.
a custom compressed file.
Yeah. It's a custom file. It doesn't have to be compressed. It's a custom package of data. It's a package data. That's it. It can be compressed. It can be not. It can be encoded. It can be not. It can be encrypted. It can be not. Yeah, it's a package of data. But actually, the correct name, by the way, Miquel. Some people call it. Wait a second. Checking the correct name. Usually called a binary block, or directly a block. Yeah, that's the name. But well, actually, it's a package of data. I already explained that yesterday, but all games use data packaging. So it's very weird to see games that use assets like PNG, BMP, or any other known file format. It's very weird. They usually use some kind of data packaging. Okay. That's a very interesting topic. It would have been great to have some more insights in that topic in your presentation, David. But okay, I mean, no worries. It's not a problem. I mean, it's something that is very specific. But it's interesting that you are aware of that, because that's the way that data is packaged in video games. It's interesting to know. Here we got an example, or we saw how that data can be accessed, but it would have been also great to see how packaging could work, or what different packaging options we have. Yeah, that was a simple example. You just use a zip package, that actually it's a package. We saw how to read from that package, so it's a good start, I think. Were you requested to implement FISFS for your games? Let me check. If it's not on the checklist, it will be added to the checklist. Uh, okay. Yeah, that's it, David. Uh, Thanks for the presentation. Actually, it was nice, and I like the implementation. I just missed a bit of more of theoretical information about packaging and virtual file systems, but yeah, maybe it was out of scope, so it's okay. And yeah, the implementation was good, so yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. Claps. By the way, claps. Uh, do you have some question? Questions? We still have some time, so maybe if you have some questions about data packaging, virtual file systems, game engines, uh, commercial game engines, custom game engines, whatever, uh, just ask me, please. Oh, David,
Yeah.
David, did you
Yeah.
send me the link? Did you send me the link to the research?
No, I don't think so.
Send me the link.
The web or the repository?
You can send me either the web, for example,
Okay. Where?
to the campus, or just share it here if you want. You can share it here in the chat. Yeah, that's it. Oh no, you should. Sorry, you should send me the email, please, David, because I'm working in different computers.
Okay.
So yeah.
Uh,
Angel, very good. That's a good question. The answer is Mark is saying something. Actually, it will depend on what you want to do. Do you care about reading partial files or partial data? Partial data? Do you care? Because if you want to read, if you are okay with reading partial pieces of data instead of the full chunk, that would be okay to use the first form. If you don't, if you just want to read the full chunk and make sure that you read the full chunk, then you use the second form. It would depend the situation. That's the good thing of the function. It would depend on your needs and the situation. For example, let's think about a situation. We have a large text file, right? But we have a loaded buffer with a fixed size. In that situation, maybe we just want to read as much characters as we could from the original file to fill the buffer. And if we don't care if we don't read the full text, right? So in that situation, the first form would be the best one. Oh, what do you mean? Should we care? David, thank you, everything tonight. Yeah, maybe in that case it would be a better option. Yeah. Angel. In the case of working with assets, spreadsheet, it would be better to get the big file. Yeah, probably it would be better. But if you do the other way around and you check that you have read the whole file, that's also okay. So feel free. The important point here is to know exactly what you are doing and understand it. That's it. Just that. No more questions, anyone? There are no questions at all? I cannot believe it. Everybody understood everything and have no questions? Don't know. Maybe some questions about data packaging. Did you consider creating your own custom format for your data, for your game? It would be a very nice exercise. Oh, very diplomatic answer, Antor. Very good. What do you mean, Angel? Do we know enough right now to do? I think so. Well, actually, if you have some basic, it's very easy to create a custom file format. If you have some basic knowledge about fopen, fread, fwrite, you just can put all the data together and that's it. So it could be actually quite easy if you want. Yeah. Yeah, you should be able. Actually, in the last school in the CEB school where I was teaching, it was a 1 day class practice to create a custom file format, and those students were less prepared than you. They were art students, not coding students. Jordi, back. I didn't understand the automatic freeing of the buffer automatically. The automatic freeing of the automatic buffer automatically. Like we can't reload it. Oh, okay, Jordi. Yeah, well, when you call the image load read write function, yeah, when you call that function, yeah, you are passing by a single buffer. Okay, you are passing by the buffer, but you are also passing a parameter that could be 0 or 1, saying if you want that this function automatically calls a free for the buffer that you are passing. So if you pass as a parameter 1, that function internally will free the buffer that you are also passing as the first parameter. Did I explain myself? Angel, I don't know of any article about that. Really, I don't know. Actually, it just file open, file read, and file write. That's it. Yeah. Angel, I'm planning to write an article about that topic at some point, with all the work I did on the file format I designed that I showed you yesterday, but not ready yet. I share it with you when I have it. Jordi, okay. No, you are freeing the full buffer, Jordi. You are freeing the buffer that you are passing by to the function. So actually, it makes sense, or it could make sense, because that buffer contains the image data and you are already loading the image data from the buffer. So the buffer, it's probably not required anymore. Probably. Who knows? Don't know. Did I explain myself, Jordi? Did you understood it? Did you understand it? I'll try to share something with you. Check. Check something. No, Jordi, the buffer actually contains all the file loaded in memory. Okay. Actually contains that's it, the file loaded in memory. And from that file loaded in memory, you load the image that is contained within that buffer. And then you can unload the file from memory. That's what the virtual file systems give you. Because you are aware, I imagine, that you only need the pixel data from an image, for example. Okay, yeah, that's it. Okay. Do you know that okay, just a question for all of you, just in case. You have an image, okay, for your game, and that image could be the same image, could be BMP, PNG, TGA. You got the same image in those three formats: BMP, PNG, and TGA. Which one is the best format or the most efficient format to be used in your game in terms of memory, in terms of memory usage? BMP, PNG, or TGA? Which one is the most efficient format for your image? You got the same image. Are the same image. Let's say no transparency, no alpha channel, but it's the same image. The same image saved in three different formats. Guillem says PNG, Mikel PMP, Mark BMP. PNG compressed data, yeah. Actually, PNG compression is the same compression as zip files. It's the deflate algorithm. Okay, I asked the question in another way. Once we load the image, in memory terms, which one is more efficient? The one that comes from the PNG, from the BMP, or from the TGA? Jordi, Pau. Yeah, that's right. It doesn't matter the original format actually at all. It doesn't matter at all. Well, it only matters if, for example, it's JPG that it loses quality. But in terms of efficiency, BMP you got the raw pixels with no compression. PNG you got the compression, but you only get a smaller file on disk. And TGA actually it's quite used in the video games industry as an intermediate file format for textures. Anyway, when you load the files, when you load the data, in memory they have the same size. You always got the uncompressed pixels in memory. The pixels are the same. Yeah, that's it. They are the same and they have the same size in memory. That's important to note. Keep that in mind. It's the same actually. Do you know any image format that has some benefits? I mean, that it's not the same? Because the pixels are the same, are not always the same. They could not be the same. Okay, those are today the standard image formats used in the video games industry. Just for you to know. Why? Very good question, Adrian. Because those formats support GPU compressed data, compressed textures. So you can load the compressed textures directly into the GPU. With all the other formats, you have to uncompress the pixels and upload the pixels to the GPU. With those formats, you can upload the compressed data into the GPU. Actually, the most standard one is the DS. The KTX is quite standard, and now the HTC. Those are the most standard ones. Those are GPU texture compressed formats, and they are the most used in the video games industry. Actually, most of the times you neither have those formats directly. You only keep the data that is contained on those formats and you package the data. At the very end, all the file formats you know, all of them are just containers. bigger or smaller containers, but are just containers. At the end of the day, what you want is just the data. And pick that data and put that data organized somewhere. Just a last detail. The compression ratio of all those formats is usually 4:1. No, neither of those. Oh, no, they are loosey. They are loosey compression formats. They are loosey, all of them. Wow. The compression ratio of all of them is usually 4:1. So you get the size of the data divided by 4. Actually, it could be higher. Guilherme, good question. Actually, it is. Yeah, actually, it is. But the quality loss is not that big. But you can see artifacts always. What's the point of using them? That you can package 4 times the same data in the same space. And today video games that use lots of gigabytes of textures and images, that's a really important benefit. I'm sharing something with you. Wait a second. That's it. Paul, you're right. Actually, ASTC is the last one created, and it has a lot of control. And PS4 and PS5 support that one. Here you have some information, just in case you want to take a look. Yeah, that's it. Actually, the quality loss is not that big. Yeah, just in case you want to take a look, there are actually. Oh, it's about time. Yeah, okay. I just here. Here you can see a comparison. You see? Are you following me? Hello? Are you seeing that? Well, just in case you want to take a look at that. One image with no compression, it's almost 4 megabytes, while using different compression extremes, it goes down to 1 megabyte, and that's the reason why you use compression. That's it. No more. Yeah, that's it. It's a standard today for video games. It's a standard. Yeah, you always use compression for textures, but well, you are not using lots of textures, so you don't have to worry much at that point about that. Just keep that in mind, and it's a good thing to do. Well, I think that we should be finishing for today. David, thanks for the presentation. Hope you enjoy the class. I'll upload, as I said, I upload the document by tomorrow or the following day. I hope to have the review from Mark. If I don't have the review from Mark, I just upload the document and I put a note for you to know that it will be reviewed in the future. Okay. Yeah, that's it. Hope you enjoy the class, and let's see. Next day, what do we have? Oh, next day we have random map generations, I think. Wow, that's a super interesting topic. Wow, wow, it's really cool. Yeah. Well, so let's see you next day. Have a good week and code a lot. Okay. See you. Bye, bye, bye. Bye, bye, bye.
este tejido.
Okay, hola. Hello, good morning. ¿Qué tal? Holy Luis. Madre mía. Okay, so let's start with the class. Okay, I downloaded with your exercise, or the exercise of those that deliver it. But before analyzing or before giving you the feedback of the exercise, I think that I will explain some new contents, okay, new theory. As I am teaching now in 4 different groups the part of illumination, can you remind me where do we stop the last class? Please. We finished the first PowerPoint. Okay. We talked about effective size, or we talked about. I think that we made only a brief overview about effective size. So I think that we have to talk about it a little bit more deeply. There was a part of the okay, left, I think. Okay, so I will start with the second part of with the second PowerPoint, which contains also the things, the theory about effective size, and I think that we will link well with the last class. So for the exercise, we didn't have to do the last part. It wasn't like that. Yes, for the exercise, you had to you had to do you had to talk about the things that we have talked in class. So mainly number of light sources, direction, and quality. Okay. So, but I will use the images of your exercises I will use them as examples for the things that I am going to explain today, or for the effective size. That it's the first thing about that I am going to talk today. Taking into account that it was a part that was not for you. That was a part. It was a part that didn't have to do. Okay. But I think that if I explain you the part of effective size, and afterwards we see it in your examples or in your images, it will be better, okay? In terms of academic methods, okay? So we are going to talk about effective size. I'm going to explain you which is the concept, because it's a concept or is a characteristic of the light sources, which is very related with the quality or the type of the surfaces. Okay, it's related. It's very related also with the quality of light sources. It's related with the fact if the light source is diffuse or direct. Okay, the quality of light source it's linked, okay, very linked to the effective size. We'll see it afterwards, and it's very related also with the behavior of the surfaces, the objects that we are illuminating, depending on these characteristics of the light source. Okay, so before talking about effective size of the light source, we have to talk about the types of surfaces regarding its reflection, okay, its behavior with light. And we have to talk about two different types of surfaces, okay, which are the specular surfaces and the diffuse surfaces. Do you know what I mean when I talk about a specular reflection or a specular surface, a specular object? A mirror, okay, a mirror or a surface similar to a mirror. Okay, the specular surfaces are what we are that surfaces that we in usual language we mean as shiny surfaces, for example. Okay, when we have a surface or a material which shines, okay, which give us bright reflections, we are talking about a specular surface. Okay, we have different levels of specularity, and the most specular, the higher level of specularity that we have it's a mirror, for example, which is a kind of surface which gives us a more specular reflection, which is that reflection that reflects the same as the object, no, or as the light sources or the objects which emit light to that mirror. Okay. Can you give me examples of diffuse surfaces, which is the other part? Oh, we have specular surfaces or diffuse surfaces or objects. Can you give me examples of diffuse surfaces or objects which behave with light in a diffuse way? No? I see that no one is writing. Oh, see, Nuria is writing now. Vegetal paper. Okay. Yes, vegetal paper. You are thinking about a translucent material, isn't it? Yes, because you are thinking about the diffusers that we talked the last day in class. Okay, so we can have diffuse. Okay, maybe I didn't explain it well, but it's okay. Yeah, we can have translucent materials which transmit light in a diffuse way, as vegetal paper, for example, or as a thin fabric. Okay, but if we talk about opaque materials, okay, materials which are not translucent, which are opaque, we can also talk about diffuse materials, which are materials or surfaces which reflect light in a diffuse mode, okay, which are not giving us a specular reflection. They are not giving us a shiny reflection. They reflect light in a diffuse with all the light beams in different directions. Okay, a scenery, Jordi says, a scenery that would do that can be a scenery with mountains. For example, if we are talking about the sceneries, we can talk about mountains. When mountains reflect light in a diffuse way, no? Because they have vegetation, trees, rocks, which are more or less diffuse. So Enric says anything that isn't a mirror. Okay, but we have, as we said, we have different levels of specularity. The mirror is the most specular kind of surface that we have. But for example, if I have the surface of the surface of my mobile phone is specular or diffuse? My mobile phone or your mobile phone? This surface is specular, okay? The surface of a plastic, for example, this part of this pen, I don't know if you are seeing it, is specular. It's specular, but it's not as specular as a mirror. No, it's evident. It's specular. It's not a very specular, but it's specular because it creates this kind of reflections. Okay, I have this notebook. I don't know if you are seeing it, but it has a specular, more or less a specular surface. Not as specular as a mirror, but it's specular because it has a covering material over the paper, which creates this shiny behavior. Okay, but if I have a piece of paper, a piece of normal paper, a white paper in which I take notes, for example, this is an specular or a diffuse surface. It's a diffuse surface, isn't it? Because the surface of a paper or the surface of a wall, a painted wall, does not give shiny reflections. It gives us it reflects light, but without shiny points, no, or given reflections. We cannot see us reflected on that surface, isn't it? So when we have surfaces as paper, as a painted wall, as fabrics, as skin. But the skin, I think that the skin is in an intermediate position between the most diffused and the most and the specular. Okay, it's more or less diffuse, more or less specular. Okay, it depends also on the kind of skin, etc. Okay, see, do you understand it? So the physical behavior of specular surfaces is that they are very flat surfaces without texture. Okay, they are surfaces which are very flat, very smooth, and when light reflects, if I have a light source that emits direct light, for example, all the light beams come to that surface in the same direction, more or less, and they are reflected also in the same direction. Okay, that's why on specular surfaces we can see the things reflected. Okay, in a mirror, which is the most extreme case, we see all the objects that emit light or reflect light onto the surface of the mirror. We can see them reflected because all the light beams reflect in the same direction, on the same angle in which they arrived to that surface. Okay. On the other side, when we have diffuse surfaces, we have surfaces with texture. They are surfaces which are not I think that I have it here. Okay, this is a specular surface, and when we have a diffuser, okay, a diffuser material, we have a surface that has some texture. Okay, the surface is not flat. The surface has different different orientations. Okay, so that means that if I have light coming, light beams coming with in the same direction, they don't reflect all of them in the same direction because it depends on the orientation of the surface at the point in which the light beam has arrived. Okay, do you understand it more or less? So this is important. Okay, it's important to know and to know the kind of surfaces, talking in terms of specularity or diffusing behavior, because as depending on the characteristics of the light source, they will behave. They can behave in very different ways. Okay, so we have to predict it, and we have to know it if we want to decide how do we want to show that objects. Okay, we will see examples. Okay, so for example, here we have two objects. Okay, two balls, a tennis ball, which is a diffuse object. Okay, it has a very diffuse surface because it has a texture which is very high texture. It's not a flat surface, and we have this kind of ball which is very specular. Okay, and we are going to simulate different types or different types of light sources, depending in that case on the quality and the effective size. So we have to define what effective size is. Okay, so effective size is a concept. I think that we talked about it a little bit last day. Effective size is giving us, or talks about the size in which light is seen from the position of the object. Okay, we can have a light source which illuminates a very huge surface. Okay, a very big surface, but it does not mean that this light has a big effective size. Okay, the most clear example for me is the sun. Okay, the sun illuminates a very huge surface, isn't it? It illuminates all the earth. Okay, the earth's surface and more things, and it illuminates the moon, and it illuminates a lot of things because it emits light all over its surface. Okay, in all directions. So the sun has a very big or a very huge area of action, let's say, but from our position, okay, from the surface of the earth, we see the sun as a little point. Okay, so for us, the effective size of the sun is little. Okay, the sun has a little effective size because effective size is not related with the area that this light source is illuminating. So it's related with the size that we see from the position of the object that it's illuminated, and it's related also with the size of the object. Okay, if I have a little object, a light source that it's bigger than an object, it has a big effective size when I have to illuminate this object. Okay, if I have a big object, I need a bigger light source to have a big effective size. Do you understand it more or less, the concept? Are you here? Are you alive? Yes. Yes, are you here, or yes, are you understanding? double question, both. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So let's analyze some examples. Okay. Here we have these two objects, spherical objects with different kinds of surface regarding its specularity. I have this light source, which has a little size, a little real size, but for analyzing or defining the effective size, it's not only important the size, the physical size of the light source, it's important also sorry, its distance to the object. Okay, as the sun. We can go to the same example of the sun. The sun is a very big. No, it's a huge light source because sun is very big, but it's so far from the Earth that we see it as a little point. So the combination of the size of the object and the distance of the object of this light source to the object, the size of the light source combined with the distance to the object gives us the definition or the specification of effective size. Okay, so here we have the same light source which has the same size, the same physical size, but positioned into or placed into different distances. Okay, in this case we have a little effective size, but in the second case we have a more little effective size, okay, than the first. How can we see or how can we know if the light source has a little or a big effective size when we look at the image, okay, or the scenery, let's say? We can see it looking at different things or different characteristics. One of them is the reflection that it creates on the specular objects. Okay, this white point here is the reflection, the specular reflection of the light source itself on the surface. Okay, so as you can see, this reflection is a little bigger than this reflection here. So here we have a bigger effective size than in this image. The effective size affects also the characteristics of the projected lights. Okay, the projected lights and the projected shadows. Sorry, projected lights. No, projected shadows. I don't know what I am saying. The projected shadows and the self shadows. Okay, when we have little effective sizes, very tiny effective sizes, we have a very sharp. Okay, we have very sharp shadows, and they are very contrasted in relation with illuminated parts. Okay, we have contrasted or deep shadows, and they are very sharp. Okay. As you can see here, the shadow is not as sharp as here, okay, because the effective size is a little bit bigger than the first one. Okay, here we have another example that gives us the illuminations, different kinds of illumination than here. Here we have a light source which is big, okay, which has a big physical size. Located also into different distances. If we go first to the bottom one, to this one, we can see that here the reflection on the ball is little, and it's also very white, okay, very intense. We have a very intense, very white reflection, and it's more or less little, okay. So we have a big light source, but it's it's positioned in a distance that it behaves like like as if it were, or as if it has a little effective size. Okay, not as little as here. Okay, because we have projected shadows that are not as sharp as that shadows here. Okay, but we have a more or less little effective size light source. If we locate or if we put the light source very close to the object, and if it is big, let's see, the effects, okay, the result is very different. We have a big reflection on the specular object. It's a big reflection, and it's not as intense as high. The intensity of the reflection is lower. It's less contrasted. We have less contrast between the illuminated part and the non-reflected, and the area in which on which we don't have the specular reflection. Okay, and if we look at the shadows, we have very diffuse shadows also. They are not sharp, they are not very contrasted. Okay, they are not very deep. We have very soft shadows. Okay, this kind of image is achievable if we have a diffuse light source with a big effective size. Okay, so we can obtain different ways of obtaining an image or illuminating an image. In this case, with the same light source. Okay, using the same light source, but putting it at different distance from the object, we can have very different images in terms of illumination. Okay. Let's see more examples or more things related with the specular surfaces, okay, or the specular behavior. And there is another concept, which is the group of angles. Okay, we see the group of angles, which is the area. Okay, the area in the space where if we put there. Okay, if we put inside this area the light source, it creates a specular reflection on the image. Okay, I think that you have seen that depending on your position, depending on the position of the light source and the position of the observer, when we have a specular surface, the specular reflection changes its position. No? Yes, if you take a specular surface with a light source reflecting on it, and if you change your position or the orientation of that surface, the position of the reflection changes. Okay. Yes, it happens because we are changing the relationship between the field of view of the camera. Okay. Here we have the field of view of the camera. This is the camera. This is the scene that we are picturing. And if we draw the lines which are the imaginary lines, which are the reflection of the borders of the field of view. Okay, I have the field of view. I take the streams of the field of view, and I draw an imaginary line which behaves as it was reflecting in the same angle, okay, as this angle here. So we have, if we draw it like this, we have this area which is called the group of angles, and this is an area in which, if I put here the light source, the direct light source, for example, it's not important. All the light beams that come from this light source to an specular to the surface, if the surface it has a specular behavior, the light beams reflect here with the same angle, and they come directly to the camera. Okay, so if here we had a diffuse surface, for example, a table, okay, a table which is not shiny, okay, a table or a floor, a diffuse floor, and if we had on that surface, for example, a mirror, let's suppose that this is a mirror, we would, with this illumination diagram, we will have the diffuse surface illuminated in a more or less uniform way, and the image of the specular surface would be this one. Okay, it would be dark, and we will have, if we only had this light source, okay, and if we don't have more light sources here, if we only have one, the specular object gets dark, and we only have this reflection, okay, this round reflection, very intense, which is the direct reflection of the light source. Vale? If we put the light source in this position, for example, we have the same reflection, but located here, okay, because in this case the light source is in the border of the group of angles. And if we put the light source outside the group of angles, we don't see the reflection. The light in this case is illuminating the diffuse surface, and it does not illuminate the specular surface. Okay, the specular object, because light beams come like this, they reflect like this on the specular surface, and they don't come to the camera, so we don't capture them. Okay. Se understand? Do you understand it? Let's see more examples. If we have the first situation, but we put a diffuser in front of the light source, and if it's a diffuser which covers all the group of angles or all the surface of the specular object, we have that all this diffuser object, all of this diffuser surface, which is translucent, okay, emits light in a diffuse way. It has a big effective size if we relate it to this specular surface. So, and we have all this light source, which is the combination of the light source and the diffuser, okay, combination of both gives us the whole light source. We have all the surface of this light source reflected on the specular surface. Okay, so we have all the specular surface illuminated with a specular way by the light source. Vale? And here we have different examples. This is a very simple example, this pen drive. Okay, in both images, the object is the same, is exactly the same. In these two situations, we used the same light source, which was a big and diffuse light source. And the only difference is the direction, okay, is the position of the light source. Here on the left image, we have a light source which is more or less in a 3/4 back, okay, 3/4 back, a little bit elevated, and it creates the reflection here, but all this part of the surface, okay, it's not illuminated or is not reflecting the light source. We can see the defect, okay, the stains and all of these things. In this case, we put the light source in a position in which all the light source was reflecting its light and its light was going directly to the camera or to our eyes. Okay, so we have this kind of illumination. Okay, only changing the position of a big and diffuse light source. Yes, if there is something that you don't understand or you get lost, please tell me. Okay, and I will repeat, or we will see different examples. Vale? Here we have different examples of different illumination diagrams. If we take a glance, or if we look these two images, first two images, okay, could you tell me do they have the same light direction? Do you think that they are illuminated by a light source in the same direction? Yes, they do. Okay. The light quality is the same or is different? Is it the same or is it different? Different. Okay. The light quality is different because here we can see diffuser. The shadows are diffuser than here. Okay, or they are not as sharp as here. And there is another difference, which is the effective size. Okay, if we see these reflections here, they are little reflection and very high reflections. Okay, they are very white. Okay, they are very intense reflections, little and intense. And the parts, the zones where we don't have light or reflection are very dark. Okay, so this is the behavior of a direct and little light source. With the same direction, if we have a bigger and diffuse light source, we have the reflections that are bigger and less contrasted. Okay, so we have a softer image. Okay, we have a softer representation of the specular surfaces. Okay, which of them do you like more? Left or right? Left one or right one? Left? Right? if we have to choose one of these images to show or to put it on a catalog of these objects, a catalog of different types of rings, which of them would right? No, I think that Adrian, both two is right. Right, I think that right. It's better. Okay, it seems that these objects has more quality. Okay, and they are shown in a better way than in left image. Okay, so Enric, te has quedado solo. Okay, here we have other ways of illuminating the same scene. I put this example because I think that it's interesting also, talking about different ways of showing the same. Okay, I think that this light here is interesting also. Okay, the direction is different from these images that we saw before. Okay, and the other two images, we have another light direction which comes more or less from here, no, lateral, more or less lateral, or in a 3/4 back from the right. We don't have reflections, or we have very little reflections on the objects. The objects are not well represented, let's say, okay, because we don't have their characteristics. It's difficult to understand if they have something on the surface or which kind of material do we have on the dark zones. Okay, so I think that it won't be a good image to a catalog, for example, but I think that it's a good image or an interesting image to generate an environment. Okay. Yes. To here, we don't want to explain how the objects are. We want to explain where the objects are. For example, no. In here, maybe it seems that we have a mirror. A mirror, a window. We have the sunlight entering coming from the window, and maybe we have more an environment and a given situation than a description of the objects. Okay, so depending on the kind of illumination, we have two representations which are valid for different applications, for different scopes. Okay, that give us different characteristics. Vale. Here we have this image repeated. Okay, the different ways of explaining this object using different directions and effective sizes. Okay, this is another example. Okay, illuminating this object is not easy to illuminate, so using a big light source, or a light source with a big effective size, and controlling the direction, we can control how the reflections are represented, and we can choose the more suitable image to explain how the object is. Okay, I think that here the more suitable image would be this, because it's an image in which all the surfaces are illuminated and the reflections are not. We don't have a very high reflection contrasted with a very low reflection. Okay, here we have this, which is too much white compared with this one, which is just beside. Here we have a part which is dark, and maybe it seems a hole. No? We don't have information here. Here we have more or less the same effect as here, and here we have this. Okay. Okay, more examples of different ways of explaining or showing objects, subjects, or situations, depending on the effective size of the light source. As we can see, or as you can see, we have the same subject here. Okay. On the left image, how many light sources do we have here on the same image? On the left image. One, two. Vamos a desempatar. One or two. Enrique is changing mind, I think. There's a frontal light coming from us, for sure. Yes, there's a frontal. Well, frontal. I think that it's between perfect, between frontal and 3/4. Okay, it's more 3/4 because it's coming from here. It's illuminating this part here, so it's coming frontal to the character, not frontal to us. And we have another light source lateral from the left side. Okay, one which is illuminating this, and the other one which is illuminating this part of the hand, this part of the face. Okay, this here. Vale? They have a little or a big effective size. Little or big? What do you think? Big. Big, no? Big. compared to Batman, big. Why? Because we have the reflections are big. Okay, the reflections cover white big areas. They are not very contrasted. Okay, so they help us, or they help the photographer to explain how Batman is, no? how its suite is. Okay, it's we can see all the shapes, the material, okay, all the details, except those that are in these shadowed parts. We can see the time of the kind of materials, okay, the difference between this material and this material. We can see the shapes. So as it is a black object, okay, it has a black surface. Here I have to say that black surfaces or black objects behave similar to specular objects regarding lighting. Okay, when we illuminate a black object, it behaves very similar, or we have to apply the same concepts and the same principles as when we illuminate specular objects. Okay, so we have big effective size, and on the left image we have one light source which is little. Okay, it has a little effective size, or more or less little. Why? Because we have very dark areas which are not illuminated, and the parts which are illuminated show us intense reflections. Okay, so we have a very contrasted image. Here, they are not explaining, or the image is not explaining how Batman is. Okay, how is this its suite, or its face, for example. But do you think that this kind of illumination here works? It's okay. Which what do you think that its function, or its paper? Batman is based on a very clear silhouette. Okay, we can see very clearly the silhouette, so we recognize that he is Batman. No, so we are. This is a frame from a film, so we know who Batman is yet. Okay, so it's not necessary to explain how is he dressed and all of these things. So here the important thing is to recognize that he is Batman, and to show, as Enric says, more of an emotion shot, okay, than a detail shot. Okay, so here is not we don't have a descriptive image. Okay, it's not an image which describes physical characteristics of the object. It's an image which explains us a given situation. Okay, an environment, an emotional situation. It expresses different things and locates the character in a specific scenery or environment. Okay, yeah. So different ways of showing, or light helps us to lighting has meaning, or takes meaning. It means something, not usually combined with other elements of the scene. Okay, so if these elements, the kind of elements that we use, are coherent with lighting, light helps us to express or to show the things in a more intense way. Okay, or to give more information that the elements by itself. Vale. Okay, here we have examples in which light helps us to give more information, okay, to show things which are not in the field of view in the image, which are out of the image. In this case, for example, we have these reflections on this glass, okay, which explains us that on the other in the part of the space, no, in the room in which the camera is, there are fluorescent light sources on the ceiling, okay, and these reflections help to explain that here there is a wall of glass, okay, there is a glass. Maybe without these reflections or these reflections here, it would be more difficult for the viewer to understand that here there is a glass that separates the two rooms, the two spaces, okay. And here we have this example that is from a 2D animation. I think that I didn't show you this animation, isn't it? We didn't watch it, ¿verdad? Okay, maybe I will pass it to you. I will put it. I don't think so. Okay. Okay, this is an example. I like this is a short, okay, a 2D animation short. That I think that it's interesting because it uses geometrical, plane, and flat graphic elements. Okay, okay. All the elements are drawn using geometrical shapes with plain colors, but it has the illumination is very good. Okay, it's used, it's drawn in a very realistic way. Okay, so they achieve a very realistic aesthetics. Okay, only using a realistic use of light. Okay, with graphic elements, or with an illustration which is made of plain geometrical shapes. Okay, I will put it afterwards. So here lights helps us to understand that this woman is in an inside room, no? He is in a place which does not has as it's not very illuminated, because we have more illumination or more light outside on the street. Okay, so we have a contrast between the sunlight and the light inside that place. And do you think that this is a cloudy day or a shiny day? The art style looks really cool already. Yes, I like it very more. I will. There's also quite a bit of bloom, right? Yes, there is a bit of bloom, which helps us to understand that here there is a glass surface. Okay, so the objects on the other side of the glass are not as sharp and contrasted as the elements in this part of the glass. Okay, in this part of the glass. And you say that there is a sunny day. Why do you know that it's a sunny day? Which are the things that explain us that this is a sunny day? Okay, the outside is very light. Okay, comparing to the inside, so we have a very intense light, and the reflections, that reflection here and that reflections here on the silhouette of the woman, are very intense, okay, are more or less little, no? And they are very intense. So we have a little effective size, and when we have when sun is the light source, if we have a very little effective size, it means that we don't have clouds, okay, that it is a shiny day. If the light was very diffuse, if we had very smooth reflections and very smooth shadows, it meant that it will mean that we have a cloudy day. Okay. This is another frame of the same production. Here, if you see that here we have the reflection in this part, here the reflection changed because the point of view of the camera has changed. Now the camera is outside, is on the street, and we can see that here there is a mirror, no, between the camera and the woman, because we have reflections on the mirror, this kind of reflections, okay, and the reflections of the building in front of this woman, which are reflecting here. So we understand that here there is a glass, okay, and they are playing also with reflections in order to explain the type of the kind of or a realistic behavior of the sun in a shiny day. Vale? Okay, here we have an example of a type of light source which is not very used usually. Okay, it's not very common, because we have which is the effective size here? We have a big or a little effective size in this scene. It's big, okay, related with the object, with the main object of the scene. It is a big light source, okay. We have the combination of 9 light sources, but they give a big light source. But in this case, it is a direct light source, a direct light, isn't it? Why? Because we have very sharp shadows, sharp and contrasted shadows. So we have the light beams coming, all of them in the same direction. Okay, so we have a direct light, but a big effective size light. Usually, okay, I don't know, in a lot of situations, when we have a big effective size, it's combined with a diffuse light source. Okay, usually big effective sizes are related or coincide with diffuse light sources. Okay, and little effective sizes with direct light sources. But we can have situations as this, in which we have a big effective size with a direct light source. Okay, and why do you think that they used this kind of illumination in this case, in this scene? Do you think that this kind of illumination suits with the scene, with the things that they want to express or to show? The intention is to highlight the machine and its size, okay? To highlight the big thing. Okay. Yes, it's clear, no? It's clear that they want to highlight the machine and its size, no? They want to highlight that it's a big machine. We can see more or less the environment, okay, the rest of the scene, only by few reflections, no? and low lighting. Okay, we can more or less understand where this machine is, but the attention is centered on the machine. Do you think that this lighting helps to explain how the machine is? This machine has a more or less specular surface. Okay, so we have high reflections contrasted with the shadow zones. Okay, but as the light source is big, these reflections are big enough to show the different shapes of the object. Okay, if we had a diffuse light source, we would have an the machine would be it would be shown in a better way, okay, because if we had a diffuser light source, these shadowed areas, these deep shadowed areas, would be more illuminated, and it would be an image, a more descriptive image. But here the interesting thing is that this lighting achieves the combination of, or a situation in which the shapes of the machine are more or less well explained. We can understand, okay, the structure of this machine, but it's contrasted enough to give us the sensation or the emotion, or to express that this is not a soft machine, no, or not it's a hard machine, isn't it? It's a hard thing, hard situation. It's not for, I don't know, for planting flowers, okay, for growing flowers. No, it's a machine. It's maybe a war machine or a machine to attack or something like this, because they play with the combination of with the light that helps to explain the shapes, but in a contrasted and in a hard way. Okay. We have more examples, but I passed to the next concept, which is contrast. Okay. We are talking now about another characteristic of light source, or another characteristic of illumination, okay, or of a scene, an illuminated scene, which is contrast. I think that, do you know what contrast is? Can you define contrast? If we are thinking about illumination or about illuminated sceneries. Can someone explain or define what contrast is? Adrián. I don't know how to define contrast. Okay, thank you. Someone who answers anything, something. Same. Okay. Okay. Does it rings you a bell if I say that contrast is the difference of brightness or of luminosity between the most illuminated parts and the darkest parts? Okay, if we are talking about illumination, okay, which is our subject now, the contrast is the difference of light intensity between the most illuminated parts and the darkest parts. Okay, so in this first image, we have a less contrasted image than here. Okay, why? Because here on the last image, the more illuminated parts or the lighter parts are very light. Okay, are near to white, to overexposed white, and here the most illuminated part is not as white as here. Okay, and here the difference between white and black is very big. Okay, talking about intensity of light terms, and here the difference between the most illuminated part and the darkest part is not as different as here. Okay, can you understand a little bit the concept? Okay, so how can we control, or which are the elements or the factors that affect to contrast? Contrast depends on what? On which things? Talking about an scenery, okay? If we go to your field, which are 3D sceneries, for example, or a real scene, contrast depends on what? How can we control contrast? I will ask it in another way. Okay. One of the things that affects that have and okay, the answer is reflection. Okay, one of the things that implies or affect to contrast are the kind of elements or objects or surfaces that we have in the scene. Okay, if here we have a very contrasted situation because we have a white ball and a black wall, very white ball and a very black ball. Okay. Before talking about illumination, okay, independently of illumination, we have a scene which has elements that has colors that are very contrasted, that are very different. So we have a contrasted scene, okay, or a scene with a high contrast in its elements, okay. So the color of elements affects contrast, and the degree or level of specularity of these elements or surfaces or objects gives also or affects also to the contrast, okay, because if we have reflections, as Adrian says, we can have we have a scene which will give us more contrast when we illuminate it, okay. So depending on the scene itself, we have a given degree of contrast, and when we illuminate this scene, we can control if we want to higher the contrast, okay, or if we want to do this contrast more evident, or if we want to reduce the contrast, okay. So illuminating, we can control more or less the contrast that we have in the scenery, okay. How do we control the contrast that we have in the scenery? Taking into account and adjusting the different characteristics of light that we saw. The direction, okay, we saw the last week that direction of light, only the direction can imply different contrast, okay. If we have frontal light, we have a lower contrast. If we have a lateral light, we have more contrast usually. So with light direction, with light quality, if we have a direct light, we have higher contrast than if we have a diffuse light. and effective size. If we have a little effective size, we have more contrast, and if we have a big effective size, we have lower contrast. Okay. There is also another thing that is the number of light sources. If I have a very contrasted scene and I have to use a light direction, for example, the second one, the light direction in these images, here in these three images, the light direction is the same, light quality is the same. The thing that changes is light effective size. Okay, but even if I have a big effective size, maybe I have a higher contrast than the contrast that I want, so I can use another light source or a reflector, so a reflecting surface or another light source, which helps me to compensate, okay, the contrast that the first light source is giving me. Vale? So Adrian says, so all the characteristics you explain affect the contrast. That's it. Okay, and I think that maybe if I talk about contrast, I think that you feel or you think that this is a thing. So this is something that it's important for you when you create sceneries. This is one of the. I hope that all that I am explaining, I hope that you think that all that the things that I am explaining are important, but controlling the contrast on a scenery is very helpful for you in order to explain things or to show some things and other elements or other zones not, or in order to transmit different emotions or environments. Okay, we will see your examples in a while. Okay, so we can control contrast, adjusting or controlling the number, the characteristics that they explained, and the number of light sources. Okay, I can use more than one light sources in order to reduce contrast. When we use more than one light sources, when we use X light sources, usually we talk about different types or different roles of these light sources. Usually we have the main light source, okay, which is the light source that illuminates or gives the main illumination, okay, which illuminates a bigger zone. Maybe if we have the sunlight in an outside scene, okay, sun will be the main light source, okay, the principal light source. Sometimes we have a secondary light source, which is that light that can be a reflecting surface also, which is that light that helps us to control the contrast, okay, to fill the shadows with light, okay, and to reduce contrast. This is the paper or the use of this secondary light. We can have also effect lights, which are lights that are used to create specific effects. Okay, a light that in a portrait, for example, the light that helps us to make a reflection on the silhouette of the character, okay, to separate it from the background, for example, or to give a light which has a specific color to create a specific effect. Okay, these are the effect lights, and we can have the background light when we are taking a portrait or images of objects, but in sceneries, basically we have three. Okay, the main light, the secondary lights, and the effect lights. Okay, we will talk about them when we analyze your images of the exercise. Okay, so let's see some examples of contrast. For example, This is a very contrasted image. Okay, we have, if we can see that the illuminated parts are white, okay, are overexposed, and the darkest parts are very dark. But in this case, this high contrast helps to create a specific environment, okay, to explain that this is a room in which we have two highlight sources, okay, and it helps to explain the kind of space and environment that we have, okay. Here, this image has a contrast that if we wanted to, if this image was a portrait of this subject, of this character, do you think that it would be a good image? If we wanted to show, no, how this character is, this won't be a good light diagram or a light scheme, isn't it? Because we have a very high contrast. The things that are outside are a little are overexposed. Here we have an overexposition on the bed, and the character, the subject, is it's very shadowed, no? It's very dark. So if it was a portrait, it would be an image, a bad image, okay. But this image is not a portrait. It's a similar situation or similar case as the one that we see as the Batman image that we saw before, and this image is created to transmit emotions, okay, and to explain the emotions of the character. So we have an outside part which is very light, okay, and she is in a dark place, okay. She's sad, so she's dark also, okay. So light here is helping to express these emotions of the character, okay. And here we come back to this animation short in which we have a very realistic situation regarding illumination, because they illuminate us, or they draw us, if there was a very light or a very intense light outside, okay, on the street, and this inside part is darker. We have a very contrasted image, which is very realistic, okay, because maybe if this was a real situation, and we was taking it with a film camera, the light and the contrast would be like this, okay. So they control contrast in order to, because knowing how real light behaves and how light behaves in real situations, we can simulate, or we can create realistic images, realistic virtual images, okay. Okay, more examples of contrast, of high contrast that works, okay, depending on the kind of image and the things that they want to explain. And when we have lower contrast situations, as here, we have if we don't take into account the intensity of the light source itself, when the light source in the scene, if we don't take into account this, we don't have a very high contrast here. So, or for example here, okay, we don't see the light sources, the contrast is low, and if it's an inside place, we have an environment which is a little bit agobiante, no? It's not clean, it's not okay. Different examples. we will talk about light next week. Of color. Sorry, we will like about we will talk about color next Wednesday, I think, because I think that now it's interesting to take a glance on your exercises. I don't know why I have this kind of files, but they open, so there's no problem. And before, if you want, do you want to see that 2D animation short? That of the old woman? To have the teacher to take a rest of hearing me talking. There's no need? Okay, so we don't see it. It's called, if you want to see it at home or to watch it at home, it's called, because it is interesting to analyze it in terms of light. Okay, if you create the art of a 2D video game, for example, or a trailer or something like this, I think that it's a good example to analyze if you want to create a realistic situation. And the link, I will put the link here. I will search for the link. The short is called June, and it's produced by John Cars. Okay, so this is the link. Okay, here you have the link. So let's see your exercises of your. Okay, here we have the first one. So now we can talk about things that I didn't explain last day, but I have explained today. So we can introduce in this analysis, in this analytics, the things that we saw today. Okay, no problem. That's no problem. I have to tell you something, which is this exercise, okay, will be used to evaluate the attitude point. Okay, it does not count for the final evaluation of the practicadors and not for the exam, but will help us to evaluate the point of attitude and participation and all of these things, and to evaluate in order to evaluate the part of illumination in the final work, okay, the work P2, I will order you a document with the design of illumination. Okay, what does this mean? I want a document in which you show some reference, okay, some examples of video games, audiovisual productions, whatever, which are a reference for you regarding for the illumination of your level, okay, for your work. Vale? So there is a part with reference. Afterwards, I want a description about how you design the illumination, which kind of illumination do you want and why. Okay, I use this illumination because I want to create an environment of blah 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 blah. and I want also a diagram, a lighting diagram. What uh, what is a lighting diagram? In your case, okay, in which you are designing an scenery, a level, it could be a map, well, it can be a map of your level with the light sources indicated, right? The position of light sources indicated there on the map. If you use different icons or symbols to identify the different types of light sources, you can create a legend in which you explain the different characteristics. Okay, you can put, okay, this is sunlight, this is a light source with a little effective size, or this is a diffuse light source with a big effective size, with this color, with this intensity, blah, 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 blah. Okay, you have to explain a little bit the light sources that you have on your level or in your level, and their position and their characteristics. The link with the lighting diagram explanation in the campus doesn't work, no? Let me see. I put what's the thing? I put how to create an illumination diagram.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, does not work. Okay, last year it worked. Okay, I will see if there is any problem. Okay, and I will try to update it. Vale? If not, the explanation is this. You can draw, you can create your lighting diagram more or less in a way that it's easy to understand. Okay, so if you use your level map and you locate there, you put there the positions of the light sources, and you explain me the characteristics of each light source, is enough for me. Okay, and I want also description of that illumination that you choose. Okay, why are you using this kind of illumination in your level? Vale. Could we get all these requirements written down in a PDF? Yes. Could you have to get all these requirements written down in a PDF. Okay? You have to deliver a PDF document with all of these requirements. Okay, and it has to be well explained. Okay, with enough information to explain, to show that you thought a little bit about illumination, but it does not have to be a very long document. Okay. Mailers, yes, I will upload it. Okay, I have to talk with Pablo to see if it's on the instructions of the project yet, and if not, I will upload a PDF with instruction of these parts. Okay. So, okay. So let's see. Let's start with the analysis. How many light sources do we have here? What do you think? How many? Here Pau says that there are two light sources next to each other, one behind each glass pane. The blue-orange elements glow, but do not cast their light onto any other surface. I mean, if we count lasers. Yes. Okay, here is one of the things that I wanted to talk about using this image. Is the thing that I said before, and now, no, after this class, I think that it's better to talk about not only about number of light sources, but to talk also about types of light sources in terms of if they are a mean light, a main light, a secondary light, or effect lights. Here, I think that the lasers, okay, these red lasers and these round light sources here, they are effect light sources, no? They are light sources which are not illuminating the scene, okay? They are not illuminating any element of the scene. They work as objects, okay? They are objects in the scene, and they are objects which emit light, okay? But they are not working as light sources which are used to illuminate the other elements of the scene. Okay, so it's important to make the difference between the light sources that illuminate the scene and the light sources which are elements of the scene that emit light, but they are not working as light sources. Or we can say that they are effect light sources. Okay, you understand? Maybe because it's not they don't have the same effect or the same role in the image. Okay, so we have a main light source, which is the light coming through this window. Okay, maybe it seems that it is sunlight. I think it comes through the windows. So this light source is that illuminates, or which illuminates, gives us the main illumination of the room. Okay, so it enters here and it creates, I think, this reflection on this wall. Okay, and do you think that there is a secondary light or a light that helps to compensate contrast or to illuminate other zones of the room? It's not easy, eh? This image is not easy. Here we have, no, in this black and specular object, on this black object, we have a reflection, which is the reflection coming also from the window, from the main light. Okay, so that's no problem. I think that the shadowed walls on the ceiling, okay, if we only had this light coming through the windows, maybe they would be darker. Okay, we have I think that it's the reflection, no, the light that the floor and this wall reflects, no? All the environment all the walls, the floor and the ceiling are reflecting this light that comes through the window. So these reflections help to reduce the contrast, no? Or to fill the zones where the main light is not arriving directly. Okay, but thinking about creating it in a 3D environment, okay, with a 3D software, we have to take into account how to recreate these real reflections, and sometimes we have to add an environmental light, a general lighting, okay, to reduce this contrast that using only one light source, direct and little, creates. Okay, sometimes you will find that you put a sun and this sign creates you a very high contrast, a very deep shadows, and maybe you will have to use an environment light or a general lighting in order to reduce this contrast. Okay, so in 3D software you have a tool or you have an option which is not possible in real world, that is the ambient, no? La luz ambiente or the environment light, which is a lighting that it's not created but by a specific light source placed in a specific or in a specific place. It is a way of illuminating everything in order to reduce that contrast that creates that create the light sources that we are using there. Okay. Next week, if we have time, we will try to compare the tools that you have in the software to create light. We will compare their characteristics with the characteristics of light or the theoretical things that we have been talking here. Okay, that we have been explaining here. Okay, because I won't talk about software tools, but it's important that you link the things that I am explaining, okay, the things related with light characteristics in reality or the physical light characteristics. It's important that you link them with the software tools that you have to generate or to create these light sources or these illumination settings. Okay, because it's related, but maybe sometimes it's not very directly related, and we have to analyze things. Vale. So this is one example. Here we have another one. What do you think about Pause? The background is in itself a large light source. I don't think, I'm not sure if the background is in itself a large light source, or if we have a big light source on the ceiling of the background, illuminating all the background like this. Okay, it's difficult to see. Maybe okay, we have particles in the air, and this light that comes from the top generates this scattered illumination. I don't know, because I don't know. I'm deducing it only from the image. Okay. I feel the video portraits is a bit better if that helps. Okay, let's see the video. All right. Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. I confirm. The background is not in itself a light source. The background has different light sources. The background is it's as a foggy background. Okay. I think that it's a foggy. It has some fog, and there are the light that emits the character, and some lights that there are in the background behave like this kind of scattered illumination, because the background is as it was fogging, or as it seems, it behaves as if here we had a translucent glass, okay, which scatters light that comes from the background. Okay, the player is the light source. Yes, I can see it. The player is the light source, but in the background we have other light sources. If you see through these windows, there are some clouds and things that illuminated and cannot be illuminated only by the player. Vale. Sorry? So it's an interesting example. I think that it's interesting because the player itself is the light source of the environment or the places or the rooms where it is, and there is a background with a kind of very scattered illumination, maybe because there are particles or there is a translucent surface that creates this scattered situation, and it seems that there are some light sources in the background which generate the general illumination of the background. Okay. Okay, another example. Here we have one, which is the sun. The sun coming from there, no? 3/4 light from the background in the back from the left. Do you think that this is a realistic situation regarding light? Do you think that lighting on all the elements is coherent?
Sí. Ya, pero todos los
It's exaggerated? Yes, why? Here you said that it's almost zenithal. The sun is almost never truly zenithal, and having it a bit tail helps create some shadows. Okay, it's not absolutely zenithal. Okay, as you said, almost never is truly zenithal. And here we have shadows. Okay, dark shadows which are created by the sun, which is in a given. It has a given height. Okay. The self-cast shadows are yes. I think that here there is something that is not coherent, which are the self-cast shadows. As you say, that we have the projected shadows are very coherent and are the kind of shadows or projected shadows that we have with sunlight in a sunny day. These self shadows of the building or of the walls are also very realistic. But we have other objects. For example, this big rock here, has shadows that less contrasted than that ones, that these ones. No, here we have less contrast that we could expect, and on this object here, the illumination is not the same as here. Okay, the shadows, this if we had this kind of illumination that we have in this part, this sun illumination, maybe this part here will be more shadowed, no? We will have a deeper shade. Okay. Yes, totalmente. They are static, so they don't always fit the environment. This is something that happens when and in video games is something that for you it's one of the main problems, no, or a situation that gives an extra difficulty, that it's the thing that the fact that sometimes you have to integrate elements in different environments with different illuminations, and you have to find, or sometimes it's possible, but sometimes not, to find the same illumination or to illuminate this object in a way that matches with the illumination of the environment. No? Suppose say they are static. No? I think that this is the object of the player. No, I think I'm not expert in video games, as you can say. Okay, this is an object that has the player. So adapting, no, or generating an illumination for this object depending on the place, the environment, the point of view, the position, it's very, very difficult. Okay, so we find these mismatches, okay, in illumination when we have this kind of situations, this kind of objects, subjective point of view, etc. Okay, in the PowerPoint of the first PowerPoint, I had a very exaggerated or clear example of this, okay, which is more evident than this example of Pau, in which that is this example. Epa. Ah, socorro. Espérate, no puedo bajarlo bien. Is this example here, okay? Pokemon Go. Oh, here is one of these examples. It's I think that it's rather impossible to find Pokemons well integrated on the environment, because the environment is absolutely aleatory and can be infinite situations. No, it depends on our reality and our position. So they have a very plain, a very flat illumination with frontal light, very diffuse, very big. Okay, their shades, the lights and shadows are very soft, very with very poor contrast, in order to recognize always the Pokemon, okay, the character, but they are not integrated, really integrated. Maybe it's intentional because it's the way of seeing the Pokemon easily, no? But I think that it's clearly due to the technical difficulties, no? Maybe we could no, I don't know if it exists an artificial a system of artificial intelligence that can recreate or generate the proper illumination for the character in each situation. I don't know. So Pau says that in this image, no, in his example, I believe it's intentional. They use cell shading to imitate comic style. Okay, maybe it's intentional in order to have different aesthetics or to see quickly or to see easily which is the element that it's the element of the player, no, this object it's an object that has the player, and it's not integrated, that it's not in the environment. So using the two different aesthetics and the two different types of illumination helps the player to distinguish the two things, both things. I don't know. I was referring to my example. The issue with Pokemon is exactly that. Okay. See, I understood that you are referring to your example. Okay, that it's intentional. Yes, I think maybe it could be. Okay. Yes. I think that the issue with Pokemon, I use it as an example, but it's evident that it's not possible. No? Okay, so here the thing is this, and I think that it's a good example because I always talk about I used to talk about creating realistic situations, realistic images, realistic environments, but maybe your intention is not to generate or to create a realistic situation. Maybe your intention is creating something like this, no? To make difference between the scenery and the other objects or the player or elements that are introduced there in a given way. But even to create this kind of situations, it's interesting and it's important to know how light behaves in order to give these differences uh, in a way that they are evident. Okay, see? Okay, I apologize because we only saw one one exercise, but I think that it was enough to see different things and to analyze different things. But those shadows in the environment are not related to illumination itself. Yes, we have here shadows in this part of the environment which does not match with this other part. So I don't know if it's intentional or not, but the thing is that difference is evident. If it's intentional, maybe when you are playing, you understand why. If not, maybe it's they have other motivations. Okay, I think that for you the important thing is to be able to identify or to see these mismatches or to understand that sometimes there are mismatches and that you are able to create sceneries in which you control if you want that everything is realistic and coherent or not, and how to do it. Vale? So let's finish the class here because it's too late now, and next Wednesday we finish with the other things. Okay, we will talk about color. Okay, how color, light color is controlled and which are the meanings of color. How do we use color of light? And we will talk about sunlight, okay, about natural illumination. Mainly, we will talk about sunlight, and if we have time, we will see more examples of your exercises, okay. And if you have ideas or doubts about your project, we will talk about them also, okay. So goodbye. See you next Wednesday.